Advocacy helps you to have your say and be listened to. An advocate helps to make sure you have the right information and support to make your choices. Self-advocacy is learning how to do this for yourself.
Working with the advocacy has been the best thing that I've ever had in this area. My advocate's been she's been a godsend really. I found it very hard to access certain areas for support, health, which my advocate's been fantastic in dealing with. I rather think of her as a dog with a bone, she doesn't let go.
I think there's been times really when you felt things have been really bearing down and you haven't known, just to have that support there where somebody else can take something on and try and access some services for you.
Definitely, I mean it's very hard dealing with all that on top of everything else, and actually when you're not getting anywhere it can be very disheartening, and also with people with low confidence it's very difficult to have the promises of help and then it not actually coming to fruition. I find that very difficult, and Julie's ensured all the way through that I have actually had that support, and where it hasn't been forthcoming, my advocate's just been really pushing for it, and it is taking off a huge burden which otherwise I'd have had to have dealt with. And she liaises between myself and all other parties that are involved, so it really is just a godsend.
I find meetings really quite hard in a big meeting because I quite shy away where there's lots of people, and trying to understand sometimes what some people say is quite tricky, and it can get really frustrating. When I've got someone with me, they'll explain that to me afterwards to make sure I understand, even if I have to go through it a couple of times or several times.
I would say the family life functions in quite a difficult way. I do try to keep everything running, lots of liaison with professionals, lots of trying to, not miss one person out compared to another one. For myself, I actually get no full support for my own need. I am currently with a charity who's looking at a befriender for me, which I'm very grateful for, because I do need someone who I can just sort of offload to and talk without it being a professional who thinks they need to save the family at every turn or criticises me for what I'm saying. I've got an advocate who's for my husband who also helps me, who has been a great bonus for our family. My advocate, as well as a couple of other organisations, have been very, very instrumental in supporting me and the family in just trying to push things through, keep things running. Finding out about charities has been many, many different methods. Sometimes professionals needed to pass us on. Sometimes it's just me jumping up and down and making sure that I throw myself behind things.
Well, I've had to fight with the DWP basically to say that I am disabled, because it took 3 years and eventually a doctor's letter to say that I couldn't walk very far, that I couldn't climb in and out of bars. Eventually they sorted things out for me, made my life a little bit easier, made me more mobile, which was very nice, because living in a first floor flat at the moment, which I am trying desperately to get out of, into a bungalow with a level access shower. And I got turned down on 2 occasions. I had to take it through tribunals. I went through the tribunals on my own. I fill out all the forms, send the letters back. Sometimes got a letter back saying you've been unsuccessful this time, And then eventually, as I said, I applied again. And I purely did it simply to get the mobility car, because I so desperately wanted to be mobile.
I've been in a psychiatric unit twice. The first time I was there as a voluntary patient. I think they now call them informal patients. Not quite a year later, I was actually in hospital under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act, which is what people commonly call being certified, but is in fact being sectioned. It was from there that I got quite political, in a sense, with service users groups and things, because I didn't like some of my observations. I felt that staff were not always tolerant. They didn't give people an opportunity to speak. And I would urge anybody and their carers and family, anybody who feels that somebody is not being listened to, people are making judgments which are not entirely fair, that the advocacy service should be advertised on the ward. I'm assured that it is still being advertised on the ward, and to get there. One of my bugbears, however, with most of the groups that exist, and certainly when you're approaching the hospital and if you're on the ward and talking, I think that very often things are put over in what I would call a white middle-class language. That the people who you are making these comments to forget that the person in front of them maybe hasn't done 10 years medical training. As I say, I think this is something we've got a lot further to go.
Yeah, when I first come to the parents group, I was very nervous, shy, and didn't hardly speak to anyone. And a week or two later, I've met a new person, and now we become really good friends and had a lot of support, really. I'm supposed to be helping somebody else go around all around Norfolk and basically meet all the other groups and parents and everything else. I've come out a lot in myself, and I really don't take no nonsense anymore and just say what I think, basically.